And this is done in a group. So groups get together, they pick their most, what they think is the most representative picture based on whatever criteria they have. And they together go through and answer the following questions about each picture. They answer, what is the first thing that you see happening here? And it could be something really simple, right? But the second question is, what do you think is really happening here? Third, how does it relate to our lives? Fourth, why does this situation exist? And then fifth, what can we do about it? And so this is literally a write-up, what they call a showed write-up. And you can see why, S-H-O-W-D. So what I want to do is for those groups that had the opportunity to do this, I want to pull them up. Let's how you go through this. So I see Cynthia's is here. Where is the picture? Here we go. Ooh. Okay, can I download it? Very small picture. Can we get it bigger? Preview. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's go through it. Will you read to us what you answered as the 5 questions?
That's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let me put my glasses on. Thank you. Okay.
Could we see the 5 questions?
Simultaneously, yes. Let me try and do that. Not well. Not going to do it well.
Get across the very end of the screen. Like you
We
press
also
it.
have them on the PowerPoint.
What?
No, we have them on the PowerPoint.
Oh, you got it on the PowerPoint. That's true. But can you see them here? Okay. So, go for it.
So the first thing we see happening is a dirty air vent. We noticed that there are water stains on top. This was on the ceiling of the first floor of Lakeshore Home, right by the admin office. What we see happening here.
So what is really happening?
This is the same filter of air that's coming into our classrooms. So a lot of times we're turning on our air conditioning, so all the air gets recycled. So we're inhaling dirty air, dirty fumes. There isn't very much filtration to it. How does this relate to our lives? We noticed that this would affect our education because personally, I just had the flu a couple weeks back and I couldn't concentrate in class because of that, as well as once I got better from the flu, my asthma started coming back and it started flaring. So that made it even more difficult. So instead of paying attention to lectures, I'm just coughing my lungs out. How does this relate? Why does this situation exist? So a reason why we should address this concern is because our tuition is constantly increasing throughout the years, ever so much. A lot of the money is being used towards our parking structure and our campus police, but it should also be used more effectively and efficiently towards our overall health as students because we are investing a lot of time into this, into our bachelor's and our master's program here. And what can we do about it? We didn't exactly talk about that question yet. But
I could probably guess something, right? We could, go ahead.
So what we can do about it is to inform the regulations on the department who's responsible pretty much changing or recycling the ventilations of this building. And hopefully for the best, like we probably maybe talk to the committee who's also in charge of the big decisions around this. So hopefully maybe we'll direct funds into changing better ventilation in the future for the academic sake.
So what I like about, so everyone heard that, right? It's a picture of a dirty air vent, but it quickly went all the way to better informing policymakers and funders about how to fix this, right, for the health of the students. So what I really like about this is you went directly to community level issues. It was directed eventually at advocacy. And it started with the notion of smoking prevention or good, clean air, right? But it went much broader. And ideally, what you would have benefited if we had done a full photo voice effort is we would have done training along the way. Well, who are the policymakers here at Cal State Fullerton? So that you're not just hypothesizing. You're actually saying, oh, wait a minute, that's the person who should be doing something. Or we'd be doing a training on what is the connection between secondhand smoke and lung disease and risk for infections, so that you knew to make that connection clear. But you went there anyway, which I loved. Great. Should we do another one? Okay, so let's see. Hi. Screen. Exit. I go back. Okay, so I saw another one. Here it is. Okay, do I need to put the showed method on? You don't have to ask. You don't have to ask each question. You can just read through what you wrote. The beauty of the showed method is that you don't need the questions. Okay, so who took this picture? Great. Okay, so do you want to basically go through and tell us what you answered? The questions. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
So the first thing that we see happening in this picture is, as all of you can see, just a littering of cigarette butts right along that, I guess, plant, like bridge. I don't know what to call it, but I know that it's not as clear in this picture, but right at the end of the little plant thing, we have boxes of cigarettes. So to us, that really signified that this is something that's still continuing to happen, and that there's, I guess this is something that's very prevalent, like every day, because of the fact that there's just so many butts there, that there's even boxes there. So that signifies that there's like a huge concentration of people still smoking, despite the fact that we have a smoke-free campus. So
Right.
it's really surprising to see.
And another thing is that when we tried capturing this, we were overwhelmed that we couldn't capture everything. And this is just a little snippet. Everything else is everything surrounding us is just like this, and even a bit worse.
Very good. Okay, so that's what's really happening, right? What you see. What's really happening?
I think that despite the practices that we have implemented, so becoming a smoke-free campus, there's still that issue of, one, people are smoking, and two, that policy or that issue isn't really being enacted as effectively as it could be. So I think that this really opens my eyes to see, okay, what's the best practice that we can implement so that, one, we can decrease the amount of cigarette butts that are, prevalent in our community, but two, like, how can we educate our community members or, our students to say that maybe this is not the exact location of where you should be putting. Because, if we're looking at the overall picture, it's around plants, and as we know, then cigarettes have a lot of toxins, and we don't really, I guess, know like what that effect is on the plants, and I guess, going through the air that we breathe. So.
Okay. Now, I think I didn't give you enough time to actually go through all these, but I think you're getting there anyway. And one of the things that we would be training you, if you actually did a photo voice effort like this, is, for example, what is the smoking ban on this campus? It turns out that the university smoking ban is a ban in terms of stating what shouldn't happen, but there's no enforcement. And that's actually a university agreement, that there will be no enforcement. So then if you start thinking about, well, what can we do about it? Then you can really hone in your recommendation to say, if this is important to the campus community and to the health of students, we should be putting resources into enforcing this, right? I can see you kind of going there. Very good.
Another thing is how this is like at the engineering building, where it's like towards the back and it's like near the parking lot, so it's like at the edge of campus. So I feel like people might be going here thinking they can like get away with it, then they might not technically be considered, and we're not that close to it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's go over the last one. Do you want to do this one? And it looks like there's some agreement going on here with pictures. So do you want to go through this one?
Sure. This was outside by the orange grove. So in this picture, I kind of just see like Cal State Fullerton, like one of the things, because like the orange is outside. It's also kind of like what we're known for, and then also the smoking.
Oh, I see the oranges. Okay.
Our campus is a non-smoking campus, so the concern is that despite signs being everywhere, this is still happening. It relates to our lives because a lot of times like elementary tourists come around, high school, junior high, people from out of state, and it kind of just sends the wrong message that we're a non-smoking campus. It's posted everywhere, yet we don't follow those rules. And we think the best way to solve this would to maybe be like have some ramifications for being caught on campus smoking. Whereas like if you were caught like parking in the structure with no parking pass, you'd get a ticket, or if you turned in something late, you can get fined or a hold on your account. To reiterate that this is a
consequences, right? Good. Yeah. And interestingly enough, so there's some similarities, right? But you were actually making the argument as well that having these buds was also exposing younger students who come to campus for campus tours to saying that, well, shoot, this happens, and that it's okay to happen. And another way, another issue, and another influence on potential youth smoking. Great, I love it. Okay, so thank you for participating in this effort. So I wanted to take you through just at the end of the story. I started with the introduction of the project that we did. This was funded for multiple years, but we did a photo voice as one of the years, and we worked with youth. These are some of the youth that we worked with. And the first step, remember, it has to do multiple efforts to build this capacity in youth to do this. The first thing they actually ended up doing is mapping their community. They're like, well, what do you mean we had to assess our community for smoking prevention? What, do you mean our city? Do you mean our neighborhood? Do you remember where I live? And so we actually had to sit down and say, okay, well, where do you think are the most important places in your community that influence people smoking? And it wasn't the city limits, right? What they ended up actually drawing were things like, well, here's where the gang violence is. Here's where all the storefronts are that are selling cigarettes. Here are where the churches are. Even during this time when they're mapping the community, they were talking about how people were smoking in front of churches. And they're like, God, smoking is everywhere, right? But here's where we see our community. And then they started taking pictures. I'm going to show you 3. This follows the showed method, if you can see. So this is an ad for Cool Cigarettes that has a singing group called The Roots. So this is The Roots promoting Cool Cigarettes. Roots is basically supporting smoking. They're cool spokespeople. I took the picture because cigarette brands are using famous people to influence their audience. This photo concerns me because if more famous people are becoming spokespeople for cigarette brands, then it will get the attention of younger audiences like teenagers. Also, teenagers would want to be like this celebrity they like. Okay? And this really is about marketing, right? What can we be doing about marketing? Anyone want to read this next one? I'm going to step back. Can I ask for someone? Yes, please.
The first thing I noticed was that this man is smoking a cigarette, but what's really happening is that he had nothing else to do in his life except smoke cigarettes. He asked us for money for a cigarette. This relates to my life because we all have to struggle to get things. This exists because our community has so much poverty. Richmond is a poor place. Many people have to struggle to get what they want. The things we can do to help is to keep people off the street and help keep our community from poverty.
Okay, so this is only tangentially related to preventing youth smoking, but this has everything to do with community needs, right? Relating to smoking, relating to a lot of things. And so clearly we categorize this under poverty issues. Thank you. Does anyone want to read the last one? Yes, thank you.
Driving by the ditch, people can see all the graffiti and all the litter. The graffiti is in a neighborhood and it is gang-related. All the litter and graffiti make Long Beach look bad. We should make a place so they can tag and start a gang prevention program. We should pick up trash and paint out the graffiti.
Okay, so does this actually have anything directly to do with smoking? No. So you can see then community capacity building is taking on the bigger issues. And this is really about community safety, about community beautification, right? About essentially community pride too. Okay, so we had dozens of these kinds of pictures with these kind of testimonies from all over. I told you 3 different cities that we did this. We also did a component because many of the students had never been outside of their community. Has anyone ever been to the city of Pasadena? Okay, a few of you. So we actually asked them to do the same photo voice in Pasadena because in some ways, a lot of times people thought, well, this is sort of normal. I see this all the time. I see this ditch, I see this unpaved road, I see these cars all the time. What's the big deal? We took them to Pasadena and they took pictures there and did the exact same showed method. And they were saying things like, I can't find a single cigarette butt on the street. This is a community that feels safe. This is a community that cares about their residents. This is a community that wants to keep people healthy. And then they came back and reviewed their showed descriptions, and then they realized what is special or what is a special need to their community. So what do they do with this? So in Long Beach, in every city, they did something different. In Seattle, what they ended up doing is instead of focusing on policymakers, they decided they wanted to create a youth empowerment program. And they thought that these pictures were so great, they were going to create a digital arts program. So they actually ended up doing it with photography, music, etc., to train students how to do this. In Long Beach, it just so happened that at the same time that they finished their photo voice, the Long Beach City Council was getting together to try and decide whether they wanted to do a tobacco retailer permit ordinance. So part of selling cigarettes is you need to get a license to do that, right? But in the city, you don't have to necessarily do anything special. So the city of Long Beach is like, well, should we be doing anything special to permit our local businesses? So for example, banning outside advertising, right? Prominently displaying the age limit for buying cigarettes, enforcing it. So these are things that cities can control. And so what the youth did is they got together and they presented to the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Long Beach about what they found. And they were advocating for tobacco retailer permanent ordinances to reduce the number of liquor and smoke shops in the community. After the coalition, they were actually invited to present to the city council. And then not just because of them, but in large part because of them, this tobacco retailer ordinance was passed in the city, which was terrific, right, for the youth to be able to see the direct outcome of their community effort. Okay, so I hope what I've done is shown you that to do work to build communities to be healthier doesn't just take things like numbers, things like et cetera. You can do a community-based effort that can engage people, right? You can have fun. Did people have fun doing this? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that photo voice is really that kind of a strategy to do. And there are a lot of other resources I put in the handout for you. I do want to say that there are a lot of these broad community efforts that you should know about. In Orange County, they have a coalition called Orange County Healthier Together. It is a healthy community coalition. It's made up of a broad sector of collaborators. They have a coalition of county government, community organizations, and hospitals to identify and address needs. You can go to their website. This is happening right now, a community-wide effort that fits into the ecological model. And there are a lot of community-based participatory research to take this and do research. And one of them is something that I led for many years called WingCart. It's to work with Pacific Islander communities. They don't just live in one specific area, so it's hard to do a photo voice, but we use other ways to do community collaboration and capacity building. So I just want to bring it back to where we started. If we're trying to get at a definable behavior change or behavior, healthy behavior? What are the theories and models that can help us do that? An ecological model that includes a robust community organizational approach, as I hope you can see, has a lot of potential to implement change that promotes healthy behaviors and that sustains them in the long run. So, you know that poster I showed you about preventing youth tobacco? That could be part of it, but it's not the only thing. Because as you saw with Photo Voice, there are many aspects of communities we should be strengthening to be able to promote the health of its residents. And I will end there. I think I've gone over a few minutes. I'm sorry.
Could we actually take a picture with you, a group picture
sure,
for those
absolutely.
who can stay a little while? And thank you again. This is from us.
Oh, thank you.
We know you're a big supporter, so I tailored the message for 2018, but Sora has been supporting.